when California originally passed the bill for themselves, which was like 2019, I think it was, they took $1 billion of taxpayer money to build a charging network in the state. Something like 60% of those charging stations are currently inoperable because they're either broken down, lack of maintenance, or they cannot be used because the grid can't support it.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of your favorite podcast, the Dirt Drive Podcast. I don't know why I say that. I think it just sounds right. This probably isn't your favorite podcast. It's just one you listen to.
I don't know. There was somebody that requested to join the forum on Facebook.
Oh, there you go.
And he was from California. And he said the answer to the question of how did you hear about us? It was the podcast.
There you go.
So there's
I always forget about the forum.
I should remember the guy's name because it was like a couple of days ago. But thank you for listening and joining out in California, which is a nice tie-in to what this episode's going to be about. Our
segment.
Yeah.
Our whole entire episode segment.
Bust out the tinfoil, baby. Here we go.
I don't think it's tinfoil, man.
It's not. That's the problem.
Freiburger's thing the other day set it off.
Yeah.
Not that it set it off for like the whole thing, but it set it off for me. Like, hey, we're not making shit up. So if you guys don't follow us on Instagram, I shared something that David Freiburger from...
Are you referring to the Joshua Tree thing?
Yeah. From Roadkill.
Motor Trend Roadkill.
Yeah, if you know Motor Trend Roadkill, any of that. Dave Freiburger shared something about how... Are you going to pull it up?
Yeah.
It's like 2,300 acres...
For a solar farm, if I'm right. Yeah.
Protected BLM lands, or they were protected BLM lands, are up for development, pretty much.
Yeah.
So the Joshua Tree was reclassified recently to no longer be protected.
Yep. This is Freiberger's post. A quote, clean energy company is slated to start wiping out 2,300 acres of desert and perhaps 3,500 formerly protected Joshua trees, some of which are 100 plus years old, to create a solar farm to supply coastal homes with electricity.
Which is
outrageous.
Our tinfoil hat thing is the BLMs. So first, those were OHV trails.
Yeah.
Those were BLM OHV trails.
That had to be shut down to protect the trees.
To protect the trees, to protect the land.
Yeah.
Give it a few years.
Yep.
Here comes the BLM trying to sell it off.
Yep.
To develop for not to pull resources out, but to put resources on.
In. Yeah.
Which is
it's in an effort to be green.
Yeah.
Instead of just using actual efficient electricity, we're gonna wipe out protected plants
or put all these big warehouses and stuff. Put solar panels on top, all that shit.
Yeah.
But no, we're gonna put it in the middle of the desert for no reason.
Well, I'm sure there's a very scientific, practical reason of why that spot specifically.
Because it probably never rains there. It's probably sunny all the time.
It never rains. It's probably 364 days a year of sun. There's definitely a lot of benefits of why that specific area would be great for a solar farm, and it's probably the best place for it. But it's the whole irony of like, oh, we're not going to allow people to use this public land because they're destroying it. And then 15 years later, we're just going to destroy it to power the homes of the same people who were quote unquote destroying it.
It's completely leveling it. Like solar panels, you pretty much have to drill every 30 feet.
Forget the mounting of it. You're going to have to run
cabling,
high power or the high voltage, high transmission power lines from the desert into the rest of the state to power these homes.
Yeah. It's obnoxious.
Yep. So, I mean, that really just tees up the whole thing. I put the poll out in the forum the other day to see. I didn't even look to see how many other people responded.
I don't think I responded to it. But I also forget we have the forum. That's where I was going earlier.
Yeah.
Is like,
we're
bad at. If you guys know us,
we're good at it.
We're very bad at social media, which is the way that podcasts and people try and succeed. But that's not what we do.
We did get a few more responses. Let's see. Wait, how do I get? Okay, anyway. So basically, the question I put out there was how many people in that group knew that Virginia was piggybacking the California law for emissions and mandating. This is where it gets really gray. When it was originally written, it was mandating EVs, electric vehicles. This is some of the research I did this morning, but the vast majority of people that responded to this, 70% of people said no, that they had no idea that the state of Virginia decided that they were just going to copy, like literally the law that was signed into law in 2021 in the state of Virginia was, we're going to do whatever California does.
Which is obnoxious.
That is the most obnoxious thing.
Well, I don't
ever.
think it wasn't just us. There was like 17 states.
It was 12. 12 states.
12 states that signed
Virginia is the first one to formally
back out
of it.
Yeah.
In the last 6 months, there's been a lot of adjustments to those laws, both federally and in California, where California, like I said, originally when it was written, was going to mandate EVs. If you're not familiar with it, this was supposed to start. This was supposed to start in 2026. So we are a year and a half away. January 1st, 2026. Each year, the percentage of new cars sold in the state had to be electric. It is now since changed to a zero, like the language in the law is now changed to be zero emissions. So they're not singling out EVs, but when you look at what a zero emission vehicle is, this is where it gets real.
Yeah, what is a zero emissions vehicle? Because I feel like that would
a bicycle,
a
sailboat.
Nice. Sailboats are funny. Sailboats are funny because a lot of sailboats also have a gas backup engine.
Oh, so it's funny you bring that up because they do include plug-in hybrid vehicles as a zero emissions vehicle.
How does that work?
However, they're not actually zero emissions vehicle.
So if a plug-in hybrid is zero emissions, would that mean a regular hybrid is zero emissions?
Because a regular hybrid, the electric motor is running all the time or automatically all the time, like whenever it needs it. Where a plug-in hybrid,
you can turn it off.
You can force it into electric mode.
Gross.
So to stay somewhat on topic of our podcast, I looked it up. The EPA does not consider the 4xe a zero emissions plug-in hybrid.
Oh, because it's a ladder frame truck.
Yeah. There's about 8 right now that the EPA of plug-in hybrids specifically that the EPA says are considered zero emissions.
Well, and 8 is nothing because there's so many plug-in hybrids.
Yeah. And the idea is it's only zero emissions if you're in electric mode, which the 4xe specifically gets about 21 miles.
Which is a joke. That's why we criticized it so much when it first came out, is because, like, what a shitty hybrid.
Right. So it's like the general idea of the plug-in hybrid, I think, is what the future is, which is why I think they've written that into the laws. But it still has an internal combustion engine.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's not like a range extending. I would feel like a range extending EV would be more zero emissions than.
So some of the stuff that's on the list of zero emissions. Oh, where'd it go? Damn you, Google, for updating. Sorry. This is bad journalism.
This is your topic, so I didn't do much.
No, you're good.
As a bad journalist on my end, I didn't do much research at all.
So
I just know that.
Yeah. So the 4xe are classified as near zero tailpipe emissions, right? Because
what other type of emissions are there?
Well, so you can really go down an EPA rabbit hole with this stuff. Like there's people.
You're telling me the EPA is gray on a lot of areas and they don't specify their.
There are people who are lighting up the federal government and California for backing down on their push for EVs. And they're all environmental groups. It's like, oh, this is, cars are the single most dangerous thing to our environment, and blah, 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 and all this crap. And it's like,
I wonder
even the EPA is admitting that when they're now looking at the production of the vehicle and what that does per expected mile, right? So there are EVs that are being produced today that the production process creates more greenhouse gas than a modern internal combustion engine vehicle would have
over its lifetime
on the road. So essentially,
Excellent.
your 2025 4-cylinder Jeep Wrangler puts out less emissions than it would take for Tesla to produce one Tesla.
That's awesome. That's fantastic.
So there's a lot of that stuff that's starting to back up this push to slow this down.
So of all these environmental groups, I just thought about this. Of all these environmental groups, I wonder if you were to walk through the parking lot, how many of their cars are full EV, zero emissions, or gas?
Well, so that was
like how hypocritical are these people that they're still driving they love nature and they love going hiking, so they drive their 4Runner to work every day.
I will actually argue, I think that is the one thing they've done correct in this process is they are practicing what they're preaching.
Okay.
So one of the big push,
because I have a high school friend that works for Electrify America and Tyson's, and I should text him and be like, hey, go look in your parking lot right now. How many of your cars are electric?
I'm not saying it's 100%, but so this 2026 mandate, which this is courtesy of the NADA.
Oh, I know someone who works there.
Yeah. Let me scroll back up so I get the numbers right. Okay. So the EPA, this is the current updated standard, is calling for by model year 2027. So that's some point in 2026. Yep. 44% of new vehicles have to be zero emissions.
Have to be.
Yeah.
Shall
be. Yeah. And then by 2032, 56% of them should be EVs.
What? Like just
I want you to take a guess.
Taking away choice from the, not to be a politician, taking away choice for the American people to choose what they drive.
That's the big argument here.
Is the worst thing.
Yeah. Well, it's not even. It's just choice in general.
Yeah.
Forget what you're driving. This is the government telling you have to do this.
It's the mask of the automotive world.
Yeah.
Not to get COVID and tinfoil hattie, but it's the mask of the automotive world. You have to do this, or you can't do anything.
Yeah.
Or keep driving your 2000 or your 95 Taurus.
So the rule.
Enjoy your shitty 95 Taurus.
So the rule is projects, right? This isn't actually written in it, but when you do the math, it says that gas-powered vehicles, which would include hybrids and plug-in hybrids, so anything with an internal combustion engine or an ICE engine, as you'll see, would have to be reduced to 29% of the vehicles sold by 2032.
Of pure ICE. Pure internal combustion only.
No. Anything with an internal combustion engine, so including hybrids and plug-in hybrids, would have to be down to 29% of the market from today, 8 years.
Wild.
What do you think the current market
is? It's something like 0.9% of everything sold is full EV.
Well, I was saying of new cars sold today,
it's like less than 1%.
92.9% are ICE engine cars.
Yeah. So it's 8% are EVs.
7%.
That's higher than I thought. Yeah. I thought it was
7.
Less than that.
7% are zero emissions vehicles.
Oh, not to include the 4xe Wrangler.
Correct. That is still a plug-in hybrid, which has an ICE engine. So they're talking about taking 70%
of all new
vehicles off the road in 8 years.
8 years.
8 years.
There's not.
To put that in perspective.
To be fair, in 8 years we may have AI president and fucking.
Sure, but to
may
put
not
in
be driving
perspective,
anywhere.
most manufacturers work in a 5 to 7 year future. So right now, there's a guy at a desk somewhere in Michigan
scrambling,
designing a 2030 model year.
Yeah.
It's 2024. He is designing the 2030 model year, and it can't be ICE. Like these guys, they don't know.
They're just designing the bodies at this point.
Right.
They're like, hey, this is what the body's going to look like.
Right. So
we're not sure how
planning
we're gonna power
production.
it.
They're figuring out how many people they need to build it, how many they're going to sell, what their marketing strategies are, and the EPA is telling them they have to be EVs. This is another one that I thought was really interesting about going back to your choice thing. Average price of an ICE engine vehicle right now, out the door, like the actual final sale number. This is reported by NADA. $47,218. Okay.
Well, how much?
$47,218.
That's so much for the average price of every new vehicle sold.
Well, yeah,
That's so much money. Aside from that, yeah.
Take a guess on what the average transaction price of an EV is.
I'm going to say average transaction price for an EV. I know the trucks are in the 70s, so I'm going to say 60s for the average price of a EV.
65,000.
Hell yeah. Look at me knowing my numbers.
Yep. So
that's so much money.
So you're talking almost $20,000 more on average to get an EV.
So not to justify it, but think about it. If you're paying $60,000 for your EV and you do a 60-month term.
That'd be a cheap EV.
Cheap EV. 60-month term. You're paying $1,000 a month for a middle grade EV.
Yep. Yeah.
$1,000 a month.
You're a gainfully employed middle-aged white dude, right? So per the demographics, you're rich.
Oh, I know.
You're in the upper 50% of this country. You could not afford an EV today.
Fair. And my mortgage is fucking low, and I can't afford an EV.
Right.
It's obnoxious.
Yeah.
$1,000 a month.
Yep.
$1,000 a month.
Which is why.
Which I had this conversation with Burns. He's been on the podcast before. He's looking at he's done with his WJ or WK.
Yeah, I've had this conversation with him too.
And he's looking at a new Ram.
Yeah.
He's like, yeah, I want to spend like X, Y, and Z. I don't want my monthly payment to be more than like $400 a month. I'm like, you realize you're paying like $25,000 for a car, right?
Yeah.
He's like, no, I'll more. That's like $35,000-$40,000. I'm like, no.
Yep.
Yeah. Oh God, that's another tangent. But Jesus Christ,
but
these cars are so expensive.
But that's what's happening is the EVs are priced high because they're a lower volume sale, so they're trying to make higher margins. Which business is business. I don't blame the manufacturer for that. But the offset to this is instead of subsidizing the manufacturers, they're giving you a tax credit.
Yep,
right. So taxpayers are paying.
I thought they were cutting the $7,500 tax credit. Is that where you're going?
Yeah.
Look at us.
So it's becoming harder and harder to buy EVs. Sales are declining currently in EV, right? So there's all this basically backpedaling that's happening. Now back to where we started. Virginia is like I said, the first state to formally back out of their partnership with California.
Hell yeah, Governor Youngkin.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And I think they put that, the quote from Youngkin is really good because it's not about emissions. Do we have emissions problems? Yes. Is the solution EV? No. I've been saying it for 2, 3, I mean, what are we on? We're on 2 years of the podcast now.
2 years.
There's a few episodes where I really jerk off Rivian.
I was going to bring that up here in a little bit. How you fanboyed so hard over Rivian for so long.
But I still do. I still think
they're still cool trucks. Yeah.
And that's what it comes down to is Rivian. And I said this 2 years ago. Rivians were the only EVs that were building usable cars. Every other EV is the latest and greatest cell phone. It's dumb. It's ugly. It's not designed to last. It's not designed to be used. It's designed to sit in your driveway, plugged into your dryer vent, or sorry, your dryer outlet.
Dryer outlet.
And
I had this conversation with my wife the other day. Is we drove. Oh, we went down to Culpeper for something to go to a winery to surprise my buddy Nick with the 80 series for his 28th or 29th birthday. We met him at a brewery, and we drove past a GMC dealership, and they had four Hummer EVs.
Nobody's buying them.
In Culpeper.
Yeah, nobody's buying them.
4 of them.
Yep.
Dude, that's so... I've seen one on the road. I've seen more Cybertrucks on the road than Hummer EVs.
Yeah, but even then, the Cybertruck is a novelty, right? We all know it. There's nothing about that truck that Elon or anybody at Tesla went, yeah, that's going to compete with the F-150.
Yeah.
That truck, it's cool.
It's fun. Lightning.
I mean, my lawnmower competes with the Lightning. That's another conversation. But the Cybertruck isn't out there to replace full-size pickup trucks with V8s.
It's the Gladiator of the EV world.
It's the DeLorean of the car world. Like they're going to build it for a few years. They're going to get through the pre-orders, and
I think the Cybertruck's gonna be around longer than you think.
I think
they're going to.
Tesla will get bailed out, but Tesla as a whole right now is not exactly stable. And it's
wait, you're telling me one of Elon Musk's companies is not stable?
And I
love the guy. But
so do I. This is not a knock on the technology or anything Elon is doing, because I'm with you. I like what he does, and I like a lot of his philosophies.
Cool shit.
The problem is Tesla outgrew itself. It's the declining sales is a factor you have to look at. They're not a profitable company. They're not going to be able to continue to do dumb things.
And they're also not the only name in EV anymore.
Right.
So people have more options. So if you want an EV, you have more options now than a Tesla.
Right. Well, and I think
like Polestar is my option.
Sure. I think they're really cool.
Volvo.
Yeah.
It's an EV Volvo. Yeah. It's so nice.
Yeah, it's your grandma's EV.
Yeah. Sold.
But the push for EVs is starting to slow. The push for better emissions and alternatives to fossil fuel is still the goal. And again, there's nothing wrong with that. There's always going to be a place for EV. I think EV, I've said it before, it's documented. EV has its place in cities where there's traffic, you're idling, you're going short distances, all the things that create the pollution. But I mean, we just saw it, right? We drove for 30 straight hours through the country to get to Denver.
Just to Denver. Okay, good.
Yeah. And then we didn't see traffic for 30 hours.
Yeah.
And within 5 minutes of being within Denver city limits, we're in traffic. Right?
Immediately.
So it's like there is a purpose for something that doesn't idle, right? Like I'm all for it, and I think the performance aspect of EV is awesome.
Yeah.
It can't replace everything. There's a whole segment of biofuel and synthetic fuel and all these things that we can do, and I think the proof of concept has already been done. If you compare a car from 10 years ago to a car today, the technology
isn't Porsche doing like a full synthetic biofuel?
Yeah, they just dumped really like $100 million or something into developing a near zero emissions fuel.
Yeah.
And it's like that's the EPA standards have pushed the technology to actually be there. We have all these variable compression and variable valve timing, high compression, direct injection, all these 4 cylinders making 400 horsepower. Like that's outrageous.
That's a byproduct of trying to be fuel efficient is the 400 horsepower.
Right. So
which is wild. It's so cool.
It is. And that's, I think, the part that's missed about this whole thing, because the mainstream media, the government, everybody is all about EV for whatever reason, whether it's the mining companies, big tech, whatever it is. And we're completely missing all of the other options that are out there that don't require new infrastructure, that don't require charging stations. They don't require, like, there's so many things we can do that fix our problem tomorrow versus trying to figure out a 50-year problem today.
Yeah.
Like,
where I was going with the Hummer EV thing showing up on lots is how the dealers do it, right? So to get your allocation of cars this month, you need to have a certain amount of these vehicles on your lot.
Correct.
So you'll be seeing that more and more across dealerships in the next few years.
Yeah.
Is you'll be like, oh man, look at all these new high tech shit they have. Well, it's not because the dealer want to sell those. It's because they have to sell. They have to have them on the lot.
Right. So that's one of the things in the NADA article is dealers talking about how they have,
because the dealer network doesn't have infrastructure for these EVs,
but people don't want them, right? So it's like people
not at all.
They're being mandated essentially by the OE. Their boss is saying, "I need you to sell these cars."
Well, the OE is being told by the government,
right, that they need to sell these cars, and it's like, basically the way the original laws were written, where the only way you were going to get there was if you just stopped producing ICE engines.
Let me clarify quick too, because I know a few people at the NADA. So the manufacturers of these automobiles are not the boss of NADA.
Correct.
NADA represents
dealerships.
The dealerships.
Right. So that's, if you go back to when Tesla first took off, you couldn't buy Teslas in certain states because Tesla didn't want third-party dealers.
Yep.
So there's all these
that's why
weird, I forget what the term for the laws are.
It's a store. Oh,
but there's like these weird laws from the 60s that were consumer protection laws that said an automotive manufacturer specifically could not sell directly to a consumer. They had to go through a third-party dealership. So every car dealership you see is a franchise. Like period. The only one there are a lot of states years ago put in exceptions for zero emissions vehicles, i.e. Tesla.
Was it an exception, or did they skirt the law by claiming that they're not automotive and that they're tech?
Certain states, they use that to open them, but then, like, this goes back probably 10 years. Tesla, or New Jersey, was one of the first states to rewrite a law for Tesla.
In New Jersey, do you have to have someone else plug in your car?
Oh, that's a good question. That's a really good question. I don't know. I don't know anybody with a Tesla in New Jersey.
Do you have to pull up to a charging station, go inside, knock on the window? Hey, can you plug in my Tesla for me?
Fill it up regular. 20 regular, please.
If you live in New Jersey, let us know.
Yeah, you get that joke. If you don't live in New Jersey, go to New Jersey. You'll figure it out. But yeah, and that's a lot of states copied that, which again makes sense. Like, it's a good thing. It's a bad thing. I'm indifferent on the dealership thing specifically, which will segue nicely into next week's episode. For Future Past,
very nicely.
But it's just I think there was an initial spark, no pun intended, for the OEs to go EV because they saw that opportunity to go direct to consumer and cut out the middleman. Right? So everything that's on a dealer lot essentially is purchased by that dealership. They buy it at a wholesale cost, they mark it up, they sell it to you. So the OE has to sell X, in 2026, it's basically 52% of zero emissions vehicles to that dealership. That dealership doesn't want 50% of their lot to be EVs because they can't sell the EV.
So, but that's the tricky thing, and I brought up Polestar earlier. Is Polestar is Volvo? They are not. They are their own independent manufacturer. So they sell in stores, not at dealerships.
Correct.
So
they're following the Tesla model.
Yes, but like even though they're affiliated,
so
with
is
Volvo,
Lucid, so is Rivian. But they're all doing that because they see that opportunity to cut out the middleman. It increases their margins, all those fun business things.
For these big auto manufacturers, is if they're going to sell under their brand EVs, they cannot sell in the store model.
Correct.
Because it's already part of this brand. They already have the dealer network set up.
It is, yeah.
It would be illegal for them to open stores and sell as...
Right, because of their contracts they have with the dealers.
Yeah, and the law prohibits that.
Yeah, I think there was some gray, because I do remember, like, reading,
that's what I was wondering.
I do remember reading a thing years ago about how, like, GM was looking at selling, like, the Bolt and the Volt, like, in to stores. Itself. Yeah. Where like you could go to the mall and literally a Tesla store is like going to the Apple store. You go in, it's a tablet, you build your car on the tablet, you click order, and in 6 months to 5 years your car gets delivered.
Jesus
and that's
Christ.
Not an exaggeration.
No, not at all.
So it's like, they're
quicker than a Bronco though.
Still quicker than the Bronco. Which thankfully that has died down, but that's for another episode.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's without getting super political, like
I think that was the whole taste of this episode was get super political, Tom.
Well, yeah, but this isn't a left or a right thing. Like, I can insert my personal political opinion into this situation, but then there's also just factual things that are actually happening about it that I think matter more than who's driving it, right? Like all these original mandates go back to Biden.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's where it started. And it's another election year and we're backpedaling them. So make your own opinion on it.
But it's also wild how it comes. I'll let you finish your thought before I go into mine because it'll spur another offshoot.
So it's like, just pay attention to it. Like we've talked about on the podcast before, the SEMA Action Network follows all this stuff. This is how I learned about it. I got that email.
Oh yeah.
Of that breaking news. Virginia's the first one. Blah, blah. I was like, yeah, finally. Which I love because I had actually, through SEMA Action Network, sent in a letter to our local state senator to say, vote for this. Like this is a freedom of choice conversation, not an emissions conversation. And the form letter I got back from her office was, oh, I care very much about the environment and I side with the EPA. And it's like, no, this isn't about the environment. This is, you're telling me what I can and can't buy.
Yeah.
And that's not okay. And also, you didn't even write our own laws for it. You just said, yeah, copy and paste.
Yep, I like that one.
I like that idea.
Choose that one.
And there was no research. There's no backing to it.
It's virtue signaling.
Right. Yeah.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
It's hey, they look like they're doing good over there. So if I do the same thing.
I feel good because EVs are good for the environment, even though they're not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But to wrap back into the first point is like this push nationally for EVs by the federal government, the EPA, affects us in our hobby because like what happened in California,
21 miles to the gallon.
We get
21 miles to charge to a battery.
Well, yeah, but we get our trail shut down.
Yep.
For conservation.
Yep.
Then someone comes through because hey, this is empty land now, not being used.
Yep.
Let's develop it so we can power all these
charging stations,
yep. Hybrids, EVs, all this shit.
Yep.
And now we can't recreate the way we want to, and now we're forced to buy these vehicles because we're not gonna have anywhere to wheel them. We're not gonna have anywhere to go.
Yep.
So why do you even need the vehicle anymore? Just buy an EV.
Yep.
It all goes downhill.
There was a thing
very quickly.
California, when California originally passed the bill for themselves, which was like 2019, I think it was, or something.
It's funny how bad California's still. Well, I think they have a massive deficit.
This is where it gets good. They took $1 billion of taxpayer money to build a charging network in the state. Something like 60% of those charging stations are currently inoperable because they're either broken down, lack of maintenance, or they cannot be used because the grid can't support them.
Yeah. And I bet half of that money was stolen.
$1 billion.
Or improperly allocated. Yeah. Half that money was probably improperly allocated.
$1 billion down the tubes.
Yeah.
Well, I guess $500 million if you want to, yeah. But it's like it cannot be done, and this is now proof. Like all of this backpedaling stuff, this is all in the last month and a half. This is not like something that happened last summer that's now just being reported. The federal government has backed down on their own standards.
We need to start looking good because there's an election coming up.
Yeah,
that's what it is.
Yeah, and like Trump has said, if he wins again, which God help us all, but that's another a wrong podcast.
Wrong podcast.
He's one of the first things he's going to do is just smash the whole EPA mandate because it's a bad economic decision. It's a bad freedom of choice decision. Like it.
I have to look and see how by no means have I chosen who I'm voting for yet. But I'm a fan of RFK. I'd like to see where he stands because he is an environmentalist. He's about protecting the environment, all that stuff. But I'm interested to see where he stands in the EV world.
I don't know his specifically. I think this is and will always be a 50-year problem. Like this is not something our generation's solving. It's not the current administration's not going to solve this problem.
No, our kids political people are solving it.
Well, and it's not even a solving thing. It's you just have to evolve. I should have written it down. The Oil and Whiskey podcast with the Roadster Shop did an interview with Mike Spagnola of the CEO of SEMA, and he read off a quote that was like something along the lines of like, I've been doing this for 30 years and all this new technology, you're not going to be able to work on your own car anymore.
Yeah. Which we've beaten to death too.
Yeah. The exact quote he read off of was from a SEMA publication of 1971. Right. So this argument, because the quote comes from a conversation they had that had nothing to do with EVs. It was just automotive technology as a whole. It's always evolving.
Well, 71 was
the gas crisis.
The gas crisis. Right. They started doing emissions regulations and all that.
So the guys that were working on carbureted V8s
era.
in the 50s and 60s, when the 70s come along and they're dealing with air pumps and all these early fuel injection systems and all these complicated, quote unquote, complicated things.
They are complicated. They're shit vacuum systems.
Oh, the mechanical fuel injection is awful. Awful.
Vacuum pumps on vacuum pumps.
I worked on a Fuelie Corvette, 57 Fuelie Corvette when I was in at the museum. And it was
and the fact
it was one of those things I just looked at it and it was like, ugh.
The fact that the vacuum system that ran the emission system also flipped up your headlights.
Yeah.
Also like triggered your door alarm and all this shit on the if you had was that just the newer ones? The solid axle with the locking hubs. They had the vacuum locking hubs.
Ford used that until like I don't know what.
But that's
2008.
That's old technology. Yeah. Vacuum locking hubs.
Your HVAC system, all your blend doors and all the stuff that like moves the vents.
God, what a nightmare of an era.
Oh yeah. But again, that was like the 70s through the 90s.
What a nightmare of an era.
Right. So like we're just the generation that has to deal with the transition. And again, like we talked about earlier, it's not all bad. We've gotten some phenomenal stuff out of these mandates. But we're basically pissing it away, right? We have all these awesome, super efficient engines that the government's going, hey, great job on that. You're not going to be able to use that in 5 years.
The GR Corolla is probably the highlight of all these super efficient engines.
I think
it's a 3-cylinder that makes 400 horsepower.
Yeah.
It's obnoxious.
Yeah. I think the Mazda was like one of the first ones to have that.
The Sky Active.
The Sky Active, like super high compression, direct injection. Like, that was like a 14-to-1 compression ratio.
NA
making like 285 horse.
Hell yeah, brother.
And getting 40 miles to the gallon. Like
pack that puppy in an MX-5 and hit the track.
You can't tell me like that. Like as a car guy, that's cool shit, right? Look at the Jeeps, the 2-liter 4-cylinder turbos.
Great.
Make more horsepower and torque than the V6 that they've been using for 20 something years.
Yeah.
Like there is good stuff coming out of this that doesn't involve a battery and silence. Like we can do this. We as the consumer can also dictate it, right? Besides the political voting side of it.
Now we can in Virginia. Now we can dictate it.
Well, I mean, we have listeners all over the place now.
Fair.
Right? So if you're in one of the other 11, I should look this up. I didn't even think about that.
What are the other 11 states?
Yeah, I don't know what I know. I mean, they're all liberal states, but that's let's see. But the
Tom's Googling.
Yeah. The idea is the consumer or the voter, right? Like you can be the ones that go, wait, no, there's other technology that can get us where we want to be. Right? But the idea is we're trying to reduce emissions, and there's nothing wrong with that. But there's the, I don't want to say the right way, because there is not necessarily one right way. But like they finally added hydrogen fuel cell to the list of zero emissions vehicles,
which is cool technology,
but they're not mass produced yet.
Yeah. I think there's one hydrogen filling station on the East Coast, and it's in North Carolina.
Yeah. Let's see. It's copy California EV mandate. Oh, you're right. It was 16 states.
Haha, I know something. Was. Now it's 15. Hell yeah, Virginia.
Let's see. All right, so I don't. This article is a couple years old, so this may not be fully accurate, but it's probably pretty damn close. So Washington, Massachusetts, New York, Oregon, Vermont, Colorado. Colorado and Pennsylvania did not.
I'm not surprised by that, because those are huge motorsport states. Believe it or not.
Yeah.
Huge motorsport
Virginia,
states.
Minnesota. Just give me the list. I don't want to read all your crap.
It's like a recipe. You got to scroll through.
Yeah.
Got to scroll through the life story to get to the information you actually want.
This is a map. Oh,
do you know what the states look like, Tom? Could you name the states by their shape?
I could. I'm pretty good at it.
I don't think I could.
Really?
I don't think I could.
Oh, you mean like
just if you
the
just
whole
saw
map of the country? Like you could you pick out the states in the country, or if it was just this,
just the single shape of the state popped up on a screen? Do you think
I could probably get a good chunk of them? Yeah, because I'm like, yeah, I think I could get a good chunk. I really do.
I think I would do worse than I think.
Oh man, Google's failing me right now.
That's all right.
Oh, this is Fox News. This might not be very accurate either.
Is there a news source that is accurate and reliable?
No, that's the problem. Oh, here we go. This is from May 24th, 2024. Scroll through all the crap. Just give me the map. There we go. Oh, no, that's EV charging stations. I
don't think we're going to find it. What's the point you're trying to make, Tom?
I was going to list off the states. That way if any of our listeners were in the act. Google it for yourselves.
But the best way to act is to vote. That's really the only way to
see what's going on.
Affect change in your state is vote.
Well, vote, and
if you're buying vehicles, buy new vehicles. Buy new full ICE vehicles.
Right. Just do your research.
But don't buy new vehicles. I saw this thing on Instagram the other day. It's like my goal is to look like a successful dad from the 90s. Just like
I like that.
All beautiful,
I'm about
shiny
to get myself
cars.
a barn door Suburban with a small block in it. Yeah,
and put like a C4 next to it. A C4 Corvette.
No, I can't do the Corvette
just brand new.
I just can't.
Make it look like brand new together. Oh, that's the goal, man.
Come on now.
That was my thing. Is when I had my Duramax and it was clean in the paint, and then the XJ, and I'm like, dude, if I would have had this set up in 2004, a brand new Duramax and a 6-year-old Cherokee, I'd be fucking
You'd be hot shit.
Rolling.
You and your jorts and New Balances would be
now
hot.
I'm just poor.
Oh, here we go. Okay, we're good now. All right, so this is December 4th, 2023. 12 states have formally adopted Advanced Clean Cars 2, which is the official name of the bill of California's current bill. Washington State, Oregon, California. Ironically enough, I'm doing this by shape.
Oh, wow, look at you.
I believe that is Arizona or New Mexico. Which one? It's next to Texas. New Mexico?
Oklahoma.
No, that's above Texas.
Oh, it's above and to the east of Texas. Is it west?
No, well, the state I'm thinking of is is to the west of Texas.
Then is it on the border with Mexico?
It's either Arizona or New Mexico. It's one of those two.
Probably Arizona. Is it on the border with Mexico?
Yeah.
I think it's...
They're both on the border.
Oof.
I'm pretty sure it's New Mexico.
On this episode, Tom guesses states. Well, remember how confident you were like 3 minutes ago?
Yeah, but the problem is... So, all right. Let
me see.
This is where it gets complicated. So that Texas, Oklahoma...
That's Arizona.
That's... Yeah, because New Mexico's that one.
Yeah, it's Arizona and Colorado.
Arizona, Colorado. Virginia, which just repealed Maryland, of course, commie state. New Jersey, New York, Massachusetts, and I believe that is New Hampshire.
Yeah.
Because it's New Hampshire and then Vermont and then Maine. Maine, it's proposed. Rhode Island, it's proposed. So if you live in...
one of those states.
New York, New Jersey, Massachusetts, New Hampshire, Maryland, don't have to say Virginia anymore, Arizona, Colorado, Oregon, or Washington, go vote. Don't buy a Tesla.
Because in 2 years, your dealer lots are changing.
I will go back to what you said. Don't buy a new car.
Yeah.
Put the OEs right now are like, sales aren't necessarily declining, but they're softened a little bit. Like, they're not growing like they normally do.
And old cars are so cool and they last so long. I drive around most of my days at work. Do you know what I see the most of? Is that like 99 through 07 Chevy Silverado.
Yeah.
You see those on the road all the time. These cars,
we all know why.
Well, they're not dying though.
Right.
I mean, other than rusting
the
away.
F-150 is the number one selling truck because you have to buy a new one every 5 years.
Yeah. But like these cars, they're built with good materials. I mean, they're mostly plastic, so they're not rusting.
Sure.
But they're built with, so they're not dying as quick. As long as you're maintaining them mechanically,
right,
the car's going to last forever. Right. Not like the cars of the 50s, 60s where they just fall apart.
Yeah. Because it's the technology is so much better than it was, even, like I said, even 10 years ago. If you can get yourself into a 5-year-old car, like my '08 Honda, right, is probably the last of the
Mohicans.
Yeah, figuratively speaking, like it is the last of the pre-EPA push.
Yeah.
You know, that thing makes all of 97 horsepower. Like, it still gets 30 something miles to the gallon.
Yeah.
And it takes a beating and doesn't die. But like
as much as you try, it hasn't died yet.
Yeah, and
it's
like
the same thing with my Sonata.
Yeah. But
it's a V6, it gets 30 miles to the gallon.
Yeah, but look it up. What did that thing make brand new in 04 or 05 horsepower wise?
Oof.
Cuz it's probably what, like a 2.8 liter, 3 liter.
The V6 is
3.6. Oh, it's a 3.6?
It's big.
I mean, look at the JK, right? We can use the JK as an example. It's a 3.6 liter V8 or V6 that made like 220 horsepower. The new Chevy Colorado is a
3.3.
3.3
liter.
Makes what, 180
horsepower.
All the horsepower.
Whopping. Holy shit, that's not bad.
210?
250.
Woo!
That's
a race car.
Moves. I'm honestly impressed by that.
That was in 2008. You're probably making like 107 now.
Let's freshen that puppy up and make a gambler car, brother.
I agree. Hey, Evan.
Dude, I'm impressed. That's a lot of power.
And honestly, with the amount of miles you have on it, it's probably already halfway bored to 30 over. we just need some new pistons.
Because the 2000 the LM7 Vortec LS
245 or something.
It was like 270.
Yeah.
And that was like 310 foot-pounds of torque.
So now
my Sonata makes as much as my LS swapped Camaro.
Right.
That's obnoxious.
It is obnoxious, but that's that is literally the point I'm making.
I didn't know that.
The current the 24, 25 Colorados are a turbo 4-cylinder.
Race car to work every day.
330 horsepower out of a 4-cylinder. It's like a it's like a 2.6 or something like that, or a 2.4 liter turbo. Like, it is stupid, the technology that we've been able to get, and on top of that, half these vehicles are near zero emissions vehicles.
Yeah.
Right. So like we're using this zero emissions term that the EPA's put on it, but then you have partial zero and near zero, and you're getting partial zero emissions, which means at optimal temperatures and everything else, they are putting out nothing but CO2.
Yeah.
Like, we're doing fine here, people. Like, we don't need to start stripping every piece of nature we have to put in solar panels to charge EVs. We don't have to go mine the lithium out of every square inch we can find. We don't have to import anything from China. We don't have to have China build us cars anymore. Like, we can do this without having to be dumb about it.
We're just not going to.
I do see. It's funny because even like as little as 3 years ago, the industry was very much supportive of EV. Everyone knew what the hurdles were, but the industry supported it. And now the industry is, along with everybody else, taking a step back. They're all going, hey, we knew this was going to be a problem 5 years ago.
It's now a problem. You
guys still haven't solved it, so it's time to rethink what we're doing here, right? Like, you know, like Toyota from day one has said, we're not building an EV. It is not the future. It is not the fix to our problem.
Yeah, and they came with the hydrogen system.
Just like the second largest automotive manufacturer in the world is going, this is dumb, and nobody's listening to them. But then you have Ford and GM and Stellantis basically
balls deep in it.
Balls deep because they're taking money from the government. The government's going, hey, we're gonna pay you. We're gonna give you this money.
That's what not to talk shit about the big three. That's what the big three have always done, though. They've always done what the government has told them to.
We all know what GM stands for. It's Government Motors. And Ford has gotten as many tax credits, if not more. They just didn't get bailed out in 2008.
I thought they did.
No, Ford was the only one that didn't take the bailout.
Okay.
But I think they got bailed out in informal ways versus like, hey, here's a check.
Yeah.
Keep paying your people.
But
when you start talking about having to undo things that were done, like that support and that voting stuff is big.
Yeah.
I think that's, it's a missed opportunity. We're in this situation because we didn't pay attention before. So now we have to back up.
Yep.
And even if you're not like a hardcore gearhead like we are, and like you just like driving places and you just like having your Jeep or your Bronco or your 4Runner or whatever it is that you like, just imagine not being able to do what you want to do.
Not being able to buy that vehicle, not being able to buy that brand new Bronco or Jeep or the 4Runner.
Regardless if it has a gas engine or an EV. Yeah. It's just going to be whatever the government decides they want you to drive is what's going to be available for you to choose.
And they're going to tell us where we can and can't drive them because they're closing that land because we need to put something there.
Well, yeah. The public land stuff is bad. California is testing transponders. This is a fun fact that I learned while digging into this.
Like this. Virginia voted this down.
Yeah. They're mandating. Well, they're doing a test pilot program to see if it's feasible, but they want to mandate a transponder in every vehicle for 2 reasons. One, instead of getting taxed on fuel because they've mandated so many EVs, they're going to tax you per mile that you drive your car. Yep. So now all the people who live in California that have to drive 50 miles to work every day because they can't afford to live in the city they work in because it's $1 million for 1,000 square foot shanty.
Not only have to pay for the charge, but pay for the mile.
Yep. Well, and if you have a gas car, it's more. And you're paying fuel tax and tax on miles. Yep. It's not just an EV thing. That's every car would be taxed by mile, and they're going to limit your car to 10 miles an hour over the speed limit. You will not be able to go more. Your car will be governed by the state of California.
Move out of California.
Yeah.
On this episode podcast, we tell you to move out of California
if you haven't already. I'm all for being safe, but like, I've always been stubborn, and I don't like people telling me what I can and can't do. And Virginia proposed the mileage tax because we already take our mileage every year for the state inspection. Yep.
So why not compile that and send you a bill for the miles you drive? Well, but they were going to get rid of the personal property tax. I was going to say
that was going to be a replacement for the personal property tax, which personally I didn't hate because
I have vehicles that don't see many miles every year.
I was going to say I can rotate through vehicles and keep that tax dollar pretty low.
Yeah.
But yeah, the overall concept of
was the same thing.
I'd rather pay an extra 10 cents a gallon than have to basically report my
mileage.
My mileage. Well,
our mileage is already being reported.
It's one thing to report your mileage, but it's another thing to literally have a GPS tracker installed in your vehicle
as a governor as well.
Yeah, that's just Skynet shit. Like, you're just asking for trouble at that point.
Yeah.
So yeah, move out of California and vote.
On that note, thank you for following us. Thank you for listening every week. Follow us everywhere social at the Dirt Drive, DirtNerds Motors. If you're in Northern Virginia, Maryland, West Virginia, come out to Devil's Due this weekend, the 15th of June.
Yep.
We will be out there hanging out, recording podcasts. Tom will have a table set up. They're doing a Jeep day. They're doing a 4x4 Jeep hangout fun day.
Whiskey,
they're giving
bourbon,
out ducks.
moonshine.
They're smacking asses. I don't know what they're doing.
Yeah.
It'll be fun, though.
Yeah, it should be a good time.
Follow us. If you leave us a review wherever you listen to podcasts, we'll send you a sticker. What am I forgetting?
The SEMA Action Network. Sign up for it. You can set alerts for the state you live in, and it will inform you of all of this stuff. Everything down to front license plate laws. Like they're fighting in states right now to get front license plates off the front of your car. Like that's
Virginia's one of those states.
Yes, it is.
None of my cars have front license plates.
I think it's 217 current bills, state and federally, that SEMA is supporting. So follow it. Pay attention. They will alert you. You can send a letter to your local representative on whatever platform it is. It's a form letter. It literally takes 2.5 minutes. This shit matters. Please, so
we can keep doing fun shit.
Yeah. So everybody can keep doing fun shit.
We as a collective.
Yeah.
All right, guys.
Yeah.
We'll see you.